Good evening. Welcome back. It is good to have you here tonight. We had a wonderful start to our Missionary Conference yesterday and had a great time hearing what God is doing in Cuba. And now we get to come a little bit north of Cuba. And tonight we're going to hear what God is doing in the southwestern United States and beyond. And we are privileged tonight to have Keith and Diana Edwards. They are brand new to Word of Life, but you've been serving the Lord for many moons. And so it's exciting to see what God has led them to. And again, just a reminder that we are taking a love offering at every service. If you have not yet given and would care to, there's a plate there in the back. Gilly's guarding it. So, yeah. Oh, so with all that in mind, I'm going to pray, and then we will give it over to them. So let's do that. Father, it is so good to be gathered together in the name of Jesus. And it doesn't matter whether we're in a building or open sky or wherever, we are the body of Christ. And this body has been called to serve. It's been called to go and make disciples. And we can't just sit back and let someone else do it. So I pray tonight that, again, you would stir our hearts by your Spirit, that you would speak to the Edwards and speak through them tonight so that we can hear from you and that we would be obedient to whatever it is you call us to do. God, what a privilege it is to gather here, and we want you to be honored and glorified in it. So we commit this time to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Keith and Diana, would you come, please?
As they say in the South, how y'all doing? They follow up with, "You're not from around these parts, are you?" And it doesn't matter how good my accent gets, I'm still not a Southerner.
Nope.
And they're happy to let me know. We found out when we moved down there, there's no hope for us. There's really not a whole lot of hope for our children, although they were young and pretty much well raised in there and have the accent. But the hope lies in the babies that are born in the South.
That's right.
And so I don't know what I think about all that. I don't think it really matters. But it's good to be in another place that I don't think Pennsylvanians get too hung up where you come from. Is that true? No, we're just all believers, and that's awesome. There are some slang terms that we had to learn when we moved to the South in 2003. Mm-hmm. Hey. Hey is for horses, was my reply. Nope, that's how they say hi. It's, hey, how you doing? You don't turn the lights on, you cut them on or off. And those little things that you push in the Walmart, what is that called? A buggy.
Yeah, a buggy, yeah.
That's a buggy. And we revealed that we have been truly embraced and adopted the Southern culture when we were talking to Southerners about our upcoming ministry, when we said we're fixing to hit the road. And they said, you all have been here a while. It's like, yes. And when we were in Germany, my goal was to learn to speak Spanish, or not speak German with a Southern Hispanic accent.
Yeah.
That was my goal. I didn't know if I could pull it off. And did you know in Germany, I'm really off script.
Yeah, I'm like,
she said, you need to relax and talk slower. So I'm relaxing and I'm talking slower, but that means I'm relaxing and I'm sharing. And in Germany, they have a North and a South. It wasn't divided like the North and the South here, but the Northerners typically look down upon the Southerners, because the Northerners are city folk for the most part. You got Berlin, Hamburg, and some of those big cities up in the north by the sea. And then Nuremberg, Munich, München, as they call it, and all points south, those are basically farmers. And so your farmers have a different German dialect than the northern German guys. And so I was like, well, holy cow, look at that. They have the same kind of weird issues. And all of that was totally free. None of that has anything to do with what we're going to share with you tonight. So I'm supposed to click the button, she says. So I'm clicking the button, and it should come up with yes. And then I'm going to click it one more time.
No.
Yes, 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 yes. See, it's the hidden slide.
Okay.
There's another one coming up. If it comes up, I'm going to point back there. If I blind you, I'm sorry. There's a slide that comes up that has our names. It's turned on. There it
There
goes.
it is.
Just so you didn't know, I'm Keith. This is my lovely wife, Diana, and you can read it on the screen. And so, if you can't read it, as they would say in the South, bless your heart. If you ever, do you guys know what that really means?
Yep.
Well, it's not just that. It's you poor soul, you're so dumb. But they can't bring themselves to say that, so they just say, bless your heart. Or if they're talking about you, bless their heart. And then everybody in the South knows, oh, what a bunch of losers. So I wanted to take just a brief second and thank you. Thank you for hosting us. Thank you for having us. Our journey to get here started late August when we were transitioning, and we'll get into that. But I just want to thank you. You've already been a blessing to us, and it is our goal to be a blessing to you. And if that doesn't happen, it's her fault. And it's Mary Lou's fault and Gilly's fault because they stuffed us full of food, and they said we could blame them if it goes south. And so that's, yes, it does. How many of you know of Titus International? How about Fred Bennett? Mm-hmm. All right, so that's the connecting point. Fred was our former boss at Titus International. He was asked about a recognition for missionaries, and we were recommended, even though we were in a state of transition, which we'll get into. We were transitioning out of one missions board into Word of Life. And so that's the connecting point, and that's how we got here. Part of our testimony is that we were both raised in very different environments. So I was a product of the 70s bus ministries. I lived in Colorado. I was born in Kansas, grew up in Colorado, joined the Army to see the world, and saw the East Coast. Whole cool story. But during the 70s, when my dad retired from the Air Force, we were renting a place, and so it was the green bus that came to pick us up and took the kids to church. And so that was the Assemblies of God church. I had no idea what that meant. I just liked the candy. We get on the bus, we do the church thing, we come back. We were there for 5 or 6 months, and then we moved into what would become our permanent home, and then it was the red, white, and blue Joy bus. Much cooler bus. It took us to a non-denominational church. Both of my parents were not believers. My mom said she was, but she really wasn't because there was zero fruit. And my dad, it wasn't until much later that I learned his story. But so that was where I was raised up. I was going to church, riding the bus. I was in 8th grade. My brother went to camp. I went to camp. He got saved. He got baptized. I wanted to be like my brother. I want to get saved. The children's pastor comes over and he says, hey, it's simple, go to heaven or go to hell and burn like a marshmallow forever. Oh, I'm for heaven, buddy. Sign me up. Yes, that's where I want to be. Yes, baptize me. Yes. So, I did all that stuff, but the thing that didn't work for me was I rode the bus with the pastor's kids. Pastor called kids. I hope this doesn't apply to you. I'm pretty sure it doesn't, from what I can tell. But the pastor's kids knew all the answers, sang all the songs, got all the candy. And then I saw them at school on Monday, and those jokers took their mask off, and who they really were was revealed. And because my parents taught me about being a hypocrite and being false, I decided as a young person, if that's what Christianity is, I don't want nothing to do with that. So I made a conscientious decision to stop going to church and just live my life the way I wanted, which led me down a very dark and nasty path. Graduated from high school, joined the Army so I could play in the band. And this is where I meet my lovely wife, who I'll let her tell her side of the story. And and the rest of the story? Who's that?
Yeah, I forget the guy. And now the rest of the story, yes. So
See, I knew you'd get it if she said it. It's an older
I
generation.
had to think of it in my head for a second. Well, I grew up in a Christian home. I had the privilege. I grew up right over in northern New Jersey. Grew up over there and grew up in a Christian home, went to church from conception. But it wasn't until I was 11 that I trusted Christ as my personal Savior. I was sitting my dad was always the pianist. So where do the kids sit when their dad's the pianist? The front pew, right? Whichever side it is. And so I was sitting there in the front pew, and the pastor was preaching, and I was zoned in. It was Sunday night, and he's like, just because you do A, B, and C doesn't mean that you're going to heaven. Doesn't mean just because your parents are Christians doesn't mean that you're going to heaven. And on and on and on. And I'm sitting there going, oh no. Well, and then he went through the plan of salvation, and just right there in the pew, I just bowed my head, an 11-year-old all by myself, and said, Lord, I'm not going to heaven, and I want to trust you as my Savior. So that was the changing moment for me, and fortunately I did. I have great parents. My mom is now passed, but just godly mom and dad who taught us, the right and wrong. And not that my life was perfect, not that I loved my younger sister. No, I didn't love her until years later. And,
Just a couple days ago.
I had that privilege. But so I was in college. I was a music education major and a performance major, and I was doing my student teaching, and I was like, man, I don't know if I want to teach for the rest of my life. Teaching was in my blood. My mom was a teacher. Her grandmother was a teacher in a one-room schoolhouse. It was just this teaching was in the blood, and so I was sitting one day at lunch at the school reading through an instrumentalist magazine, and this thing pops up and says, join the Army band. I was like, dude, the Army's got bands. Well, that sounds pretty interesting. So I filled out the little card, that's always annoying in a magazine, all those little cards that you rip out before you read your magazine. Filled one of those out, dropped it in the mail, didn't think anything of it. I was home on Thanksgiving break, and I get a call from a recruiter. And so I told him, straight up, I said, I want to play in the Army band. I don't want to do anything else. Don't try and sell me on anything else. I'm not interested. You put me in a band, we can talk. He's like, well, I never put anybody in a band, but we'll figure it out. So anyway, long story short, I graduated college in May and left for boot camp in July, and went off to play in the Army band. And then Keith and I met after basic training. We go to what's called AIT, Advanced Individual Training, and that's where we met. That was the School of Music in Little Creek, Virginia. So that's where he and I met. It was not what I would call bells at first sight. Oh, there were bells ringing, but they weren't good bells. They were like, warning, beep, 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 beep. There were those kind of bells.
Just so you know, this is, in my world, probably BC, before Christ.
Yeah.
So, it's all under the blood. All that's covered.
So we started, he met me the first night, and I won't tell you what he said.
You can ask us about it later when you have time.
Time went on, and I started to like him.
She did. It was marvelous to watch. She went from, do we have to bring him, to, oh, he's kind of cute. And now I'm just the arm candy.
So we were starting to date a little bit, and we would hang out and all, and I told him one Saturday night, I said, hey, I'm going over to the chapel service tomorrow morning. You want to go? I never expected to see him come down those stairs. And
well, before you say all that, I had to say this. So when I went into basic training, I had a bachelor, or well onto my way, master's degree in the use of profanity. So when you go into the Army, when I came out of basic training, I certainly had a doctorate. I mean, I could use words like you've never heard of in ways you can even think of. I mean, I was really good at that. I'm embarrassed about it now, but I really was. But I never used the Lord's name, and I never used Jesus' name. For whatever reason, those were off limit. Everything else, fair game. I meet downs, and I noticed right, because if you're in the Army, if you don't cuss, there's like a huge bing light bulb on you, because everybody cusses. And so I noticed that she didn't cuss. So I said to her one day, I said, PFC Downs, why don't you cuss? She said, because I'm a Christian and I don't believe in it. Fair enough. So I got a light switch. When I'm in her presence, profanity off. When I'm not in her presence, profanity on. Okay, back to the story.
So sure enough, he did meet me down there that Sunday morning, and so we went to chapel together, and, over the 6 months we were there, we continued to date, and things were starting to get a little serious, and I just straight up told him, I was like, listen, Keith, I said, if you don't get your life right with Jesus, I said, this can go no further. And
at the same time, the Lord was working on me.
Yeah, he was.
I was feeling the Lord leading and just taking me out back and then loving me.
So he said, okay. He says, I've got questions. So
the questions.
So we started going to the little place called the Village Inn down on Virginia Beach, where you could get free refills on coffee, 1 plate of French fries, and boy, we nursed that coffee for 2-3 hours every night over that 1 plate of French fries. And I told him, I said, if I don't have an answer, he says, give me time to go home and call my pastor, call my parents, and hopefully, I'll have an answer for you the next day.
Before cell phones, email.
Yeah, no cell
like
phones.
A pay phone.
I was calling on the pay phones and with the calling card. So then you can tell the rest of your story.
So she sufficiently answered all the questions that I had. I'm asking questions. What's up with these dinosaurs? I want to know where those guys fit in. I had lots of questions about the hypocrisy. I had questions about the church, about Christian, just a lot of different questions. And during that whole process, the Lord used her pastor, her parents, and her to give me the information that I needed so that I could make, quote, an intelligent decision that lined up with what was going on in my heart. So one night I was laying in my rack in the Navy, because we were on a tri-service school, so there was Army, Navy, and Marines, and we were laying in a rack. It's a bunk bed, is the lower part. I remember, and I didn't really, I didn't have any magic words or anything. I was like, Lord, if I believe you're real, I believe Jesus is your son. I know I'm guilty, and I'm asking you to forgive me and take away my sins and be my Lord, and I'll do my best to follow you. Amen. Simple. Life radically changed. I mean, like the curse button, it just disappeared. Cursing was just gone. And that began my knowledge or my Christian walk. I was an infant baby, still had lots and questions, and we can get into that some other time with all that stuff. But Dinah's going to now introduce our kiddies, our family.
Did you do the down button, honey?
I did not. There's no down button.
Oh.
There's. So yesterday,
There we go.
Satan works in these little boxes. But anyway.
So we've been married 35 years. See that young whippersnapper that I married there, and so we've been married 35 years. It'll be 36 in September, and most of those years were good. At least
the
32 of them have been great.
Yeah.
So and this is our family. This is our family. Yes. So we have 4 children, and
those are not all our kids.
Yeah, no. So starting with
left.
The left, that's our youngest son, Caleb, and his wife in front of him, Cyan. And then our next son is Benjamin and his wife, Ashlyn, and of course, Keith and I. And then that's our one and only daughter there, little Molly, and her husband, Philip, and then our eldest son, Nathan. And the 3 boys are in Alabama with us. Molly's married to a soldier, so they go where Uncle Sam says, and they're out at Fort Carson, Colorado. Which makes my heart sad because they just brought us this. I told my daughter we used this picture, and I said when we showed it yesterday, everybody went, "Aww," and she was like, "Yay!"
And then we told her it's the one where Jennings is propped up and has one sock missing.
One
She's
sock.
like, "No, you can't use that one."
No,
She's
she
missing
thought it was cute. She
okay.
did. She thought it was cute. So little Jennings came to us on September 30th, and yes, Molly FaceTimes me just about every single day, and I get to see her, and she'll be coming May 4th. Not that I'm counting, but so that's our precious little granddaughter. And there's our faithful traveling companion, Roll Tide, Nick Saban. There's Saban. And sorry for you Penn State fans. That's all right. We love you anyway. It's all in the blood, I say. So Saban's out in the RV. So if you hear bark bark as you walk by, it's not you're not setting off an alarm. It's actually the dog.
And now we're going to talk a little bit about our ministry history. So in 1992, we were stationed at the Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps in Washington, D.C., and we're attending a church that did not have a youth group. We got there, we noticed that there was a need. We approached the pastor and the deacon and said, hey, there's a group of us young people, because at that point
We were young.
we were young. Yeah, I was going to say and dumb, but I'm not sure about that. Anyways, we wanted to start a youth group, and so we had our first youth group meeting. We had 8 leaders and 6 students. That is a great ratio. If you can maintain that ratio, that is the way to do that. But while we were there from 92 to 2001-ish, and the Lord blessed that ministry. We grew to 50 to 60 students, 12 leaders, all of us volunteers. I was the director, and God had called me into ministry during that period of time and had begun to prepare us and me for that. At the same time, I was working as a musician in the Army. Diane had gotten out when we had the children, and I had developed really bad feet problems. And in retrospect, I think God was using that to cripple me, to get me out of the Army, to put me into ministry, and he turned around and healed me through another doctor, of all places, Prattville, Alabama,
Yep.
there happened to be one of 50 nationwide trained in microscopic tarsal tunnel release. And I had been to the Pentagon, I had been to Bethesda, I had been Walter Reed. No one could tell me what was wrong with my feet, so they said it was up here. So when I was discharged, I got 0% disability. VA gave me 10 per foot and told me I would see a check in 2024. I saw it in 2022. I was pretty excited. But the Lord healed us, and then we served there till 2014, and that's when God called us.
You didn't say, we called you at Heritage. You didn't tell them where.
Oh, it's right there on the screen.
Okay.
For those, we were at Heritage Baptist Church in Alabama. And yes, that is a state. When they called us to it, I was like, oh, well, I've heard of it. And I know it's in the Deep South, and that's all I knew of it. And so there we went. In 2015, I think it was the fall of 2012, Titus accepted us as missionaries with that board. We were going to be missionaries to the American military stationed in Germany. And we raised our support, and then we moved there in 2015, and then we were there for 3.5 years. It was an interesting experience. It taught us things that we had no idea that we needed to learn. It was not a whole lot of fun, but we praised God for it. It really did shape us, change us, mold us. And if anything else, if nothing else that we got Philip, who's a great guy,
our
son-in-law. So that ended up being the blessing. And we were stationed at Vilsek or Grafenweer, and I'll let Diana talk a little bit about that and move on.
Yeah, so Vilsek and Grafenweer is the largest training for the American military, for the Army. It's the largest training bases for the Army in Germany. So as they would be coming through the desert, they'd be coming through Graf and Vilsek, and then they'd go over to the desert, and vice versa, coming back. So there was over 60,000 Americans in those two little farming communities. Between soldiers, families, DOD workers, school teachers, and
great opportunity.
So it's just a huge opportunity, and we did work with a great church that was there. 2019, the Lord brought us home, and we stayed on with Titus, and we were doing mobilization and developing. We were helping Titus rebrand. And as Fred said, coming into the 21st century, Fred's very forward thinking, and he's great with that. So we spent just about 2 years really going through this whole thing. But then Fred decided to step down, which a lot of you, I know you know this. He stepped down from Titus, and Titus then merged with Frontline Ministries, which was next door. They shared the same building. They were a small group, we were a small group, so they merged together and became Missions 316. So due to some things in the direction that Missions 316 was going to go, it wasn't really a good fit for us anymore. We really wanted to be out, beating the streets for the Lord, and that just wasn't going to quite happen. So just this past August, we started conversing with Word of Life. Now, we've known Word of Life since we first got to Alabama, so since 2004. And then we have Word of Life clubs in our church, and we started a Word of Life club in Germany when we were over there. And so Word of Life wasn't new to us, but we weren't on staff with Word of Life. Well, as of Monday at about 2:30 in the afternoon Eastern time, we are officially now Word of Life missionaries. We had our final board meeting. Yes, we are super excited. And so we are now officially Word of Life, and we'll be serving with the youth ministries.
Right, I'm going to walk through some cultural norms and some shifts when that screen pops back up. So right now we're living in this environment. It's called the shift or the rise of the nuns, and it's a demographic that they've been keeping track of since 1940. And if that slide will pop up, it'll show you this graph where in 1940 only 5% of the population would say that there's no God. In the 1990s, or no religious affiliation. And then in the 90s, you can see how it changed. In 2008, it's gotten worse. In 2012, even worse. 2015, and to be honest, we don't even know what the statistic is right now. That's still being evaluated. And right now, younger millennials, how many younger millennials are in the United States? There's about 36% of the population are young millennials. A part of this cultural shift has to do with students that have never lived in they've never lived a 9/11 worldview. When we were growing up, a school shooting I'd never heard of a school shooting. It wasn't until that thing that happened in Colorado when we were in the Army that we had that very first school shooting. And now that's the norm. It happens too regularly. They're used to economic and political turmoil. Whereas our biggest fear was the red curtain, the Russians coming over, We didn't practice the nuke, cover yourself under the desk kind of deal, but that was our fear. Now it's just all up in the air. It's all crazy. And now we have this new generation, Gen Z, which is about 25.9% of the U.S., and they are the true digital natives.
Yes.
And this is where Diana takes over and I push.
So nearly 9 hours a day, this demographic is in front of some type of media. 9 hours. That's a full day of work for most people. You can read it. You're smart people. 91% go to bed with these devices in hand, and it's their primary nature. It's what they speak. It's what they know. It's how they function. They would much rather text you something than have a conversation or pick up the phone and call you. They'd much rather text you or, see you on some type of social media. So, and then we have the cultural shift, the sexual fluidity that has now infiltrated our country in 2015, the Supreme Court legalizing gay marriage and same-sex marriages and transgender now. In the high schools, a student can say whatever they want to be that day. They might want to be a dog that day, and that has to be honored as that is now what they're going to be accepted by. And you look at me like I'm crazy, but there's actually a cat girl.
It was I think it was in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah.
There's a young lady that said that she identified as a cat, and they had to put in a cat box her, a litter box, that she could use as a cat.
Yeah.
That's the environment our students are having to work their way through. For me, it was pretty simple. Do I smoke? Do I do drugs? Do I do sex? Pretty simple. These guys, I don't even know what gender I am. I don't even know if I'm a human being. I don't even know if girls are real. Can men give birth? Yes, they can. Prove it. I don't have to. I mean, what is it? 2 Peter, where Peter, someone talks about how messed up things will get at the end. Where right is wrong, good is bad, bad is good. The sky is not blue; it's red. It's we're kind of living out those days. This next thing, this particular statistic, when we first saw it, it blew my mind away, and it hasn't changed at all. And when it shows up, it's going to show you that there's been a cultural shift from students. And basically, it's students that come up in youth group who say they're believers or who say they're walking with the Lord. Come on, thing, click, change. I'm changing it. It's thinking about it. There it goes. Oh, too fast. There it is. So 60 to 80% of students, when they leave college, will not come back to the church. The sad thing is, well, it's not a sad thing. It's a good thing that we have spent our entire adult life working with students. So I never grew up. She sort of did. And we've been tracking this. We watched our first youth group. We watched all the people that, because in that first youth group, it grew. It was 50, 60 students. It was what we would call successful. And what we noticed as they grew up, went to college, and did their thing, a lot of them just left the church. Just like, what happened to Sheila? What happened to this person? What happened? And here we are. I mean, our first students, their kids they have kids that are now in youth group? Is that how old we are?
Our former students have kids that have even graduated youth group now.
Yes. So we haven't got to the bracket where their kids are now, but we've seen how they have drifted completely away and how they've taken their families with them. And we've observed that through all of our ministries and all of the churches that we have served. The real statistic is 4 out of 6. 4 out of 6 students will leave the church by the time they graduate. And the scary thought that I didn't even really connect this until just a couple years ago. The reality is what you all are doing with Olympians, that's where you win them. Because by the time they're 5th or 6th grade, whatever they really think about God is almost solidified. By the time they come to youth group, they're sort of malleable. They're playing the game. They know what to say, when to say it, what not to say it. But what they think and what they really believe is almost solidified. So it's really important that you continue to support children's ministries that feed youth ministries. And so it's crazy. And so the question that's being asked is, how can we make a difference?
Shoot it towards the back, I think.
Oh, there it goes.
Yep, there it goes.
So what the next few slides that Diana's going to walk through is what Word of Life is doing on the global scene. And this is, what Word of Life is doing as a whole.
So as you can see, Word of Life partners in 750 ministries just in the U.S. alone. So more than 750, and that's the Olympians and all the way from the bottom, all the way up through youth ministry. That's not just youth ministry. So, and then they have 37 camps in 37 camps in 35 countries. Camp, let me tell you what, youth camp, I can't push it enough, to get your kids to go to camp. Life changes for kids in camp. And then 21 Bible Institutes. You know of the one up in New York, up in Schroon Lake, and some of you know the one in Florida, down in Hudson, Florida. So fantastic, boy, you want your students to really have a basis of Bible. But our purpose, every student, everywhere, teaching students how to not only have their own relationship, but then be able to tell their fellow students and their friends how to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. So go ahead.
I am.
Point it back there.
I am. I'm pointing
Okay.
right. You see, it's flashing at me saying, hi, I see you. I'm ignoring you. I don't like you.
Okay.
There it goes.
There you go.
So we're reaching students our primary goal is to reach students with the gospel, and then we're teaching students how to share their faith. There was a pretty good shift on Word of Life's perspective, 2015, 14, somewhere in that neighborhood, where they went back to their roots, focused on student ministry, and they really got focused on passing the torch. We need to teach these guys to reach their own generation. And as it says there, it's the responsibility of every generation to reach the generation with the gospel of Jesus Christ. That was Jack Wurtson, the founder of Word of Life.
So another thing, not only are we getting the gospel to teenagers, but we're coming alongside of youth leaders. So as a church has a club, or however they use Word of Life, we're then stepping in with the youth leaders, and we're showing everything that Word of Life has to offer them, the tools to help them make their ministry successful. So then we'll partner with churches and with youth leaders, and not only just give them what they need, but come alongside them and encourage them and even mentor them and disciple them and train them how to be good, effective leaders to their students so that they can accomplish the mission that God has given to them. And dynamic tools. Some of you know the tools, and you'll see them on our table in the back. The daily quiet time, the Word of Life quiet time, huge. The scripture memory, huge, and just all the different things, camp ministries and servant ministries. And now they've got what's called Fusion, where they have this large quantity of missions trips that kids can go on. We know our missionary's daughter is going to reach the Navajo Indians this summer for 2 weeks. And so so missions then, opportunities for them to go out.
One of the things that we're probably the most excited about is this thing called coaching leaders. And Word of Life is shifting their terminology as far as how, it used to be we would be called an area missionary, and now we're being changed as ministry coaches. And every year, Word of Life trains hundreds of youth workers who want to be more than a volunteer.
We're pushing it.
It just doesn't like me. Why don't you try it? Maybe it likes you better.
See, look at that. You just handed it to me.
Yes. And I'm okay with that. We want to be able to empower these leaders to confidently disciple and impact their young lives. The thing that I was most frustrated when I was coming up, remember my background, 0 church knowledge, 0 Bible knowledge. I am 19 when I get saved. We go to this church, and God calls me to ministry. I go to my first pastor and say, hey, God is calling me. I think I'm supposed to go into ministry. At that point, I didn't know where or what. I was just willing. And he's like, that's great. Then you need to know what goes on behind the scenes in the church. If you want to know what's really going on in ministry, you need to be a deacon, or what you guys would call elders. So I became a deacon at like 23. And I was hoping, and in my mind, those were older men. They were in their 40s. Those are young men. Mm-hmm. Those are really young men. I was anticipating that they would put their arms around me, tell me, teach me, mold me, shape me. No, that did not happen. It was trial by fire, figure it out, and hope that you survive. And then when we went into full-time ministry and moved to Alabama, was hoping that the same thing would happen there, that the pastor would come, mold, shape, train, teach. You can only get so much with academics, the practical side of ministry. And then Diana was desperate for the pastor's wife to come alongside her and help her to be a pastor's wife. No poo-poo on those guys. It did not happen at all.
So we have definitely made this one of our priorities, is discipleship. And we're going to be more discipling the leaders and youth pastors and pastors' wives, to train them how to disciple, their students that they see week in and week out. So this quick story about the power of discipleship. We had a girl come into our youth group. She was in 7th grade. Leanne was quiet as a mouse. She was petrified of any youth group game we did.
Yes.
She was petrified to go to camp. She was, but she came to me in 7th grade and said, Miss Diana, would you disciple me? And I was like, sure. We're going to learn how to do this together, okay? Because I had no training on how to do it either. And so Word of Life gave us great tools to be able to do that, and curriculum to walk through. And so I said, okay, Leanne, this is what we're going to do. And so 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, I discipled Leanne. And even after she left youth group. And Leanne is now a missionary in Mexico, has been for probably the last 8 or 9 years. And, just serving the Lord faithfully. And so there's this great app called Marco Polo. And so Leanne and I use that, and we can talk back and forth to each other. We share prayer requests, struggles, hey, let's get together and talk about this, that, and the other things. So, discipleship is a lifelong process. So those young kids that you guys are pouring into in Olympias and stuff like that, then keep with them. Just stay with them.
It doesn't like me.
It doesn't like you? Okay. I guess it
doesn't like you either. When that next one comes up.
Oh, there it is.
The one thing that is probably the most important to us during this adventure is building relationships and connecting with pastors, youth pastors, their wives, and youth leaders. Pastors have a huge responsibility and a burden, and a lot of time they're on their own. They don't necessarily have, and I don't know what it's like here. I hope that this is not the case for you guys. But like for me, I didn't have anybody I could talk to. If I had a serious prayer request or something that I was struggling with, I couldn't share that with my pastor because he was my boss. I couldn't share it with the deacons because guess what? Oh, you're struggling, fired. By default, the way some churches are set up, pastors are forced to go it alone. And that's not a fun place to be. And one of the things that we've learned, especially about being a ministry coach and working with these men and women, is we're going to be the confidant that they can talk to if they want. If they have something they're struggling with, if they need someone to pray with them, encourage them, support them, lift them up. That's what we did at the last church. And I'll follow up with Pastor Darren later on. I'll say, hey, man, how's it going? And I'll dig a little bit. And if he's like, I'm good, I've got a great support system, I got your back, brother, if you need me, and I'll stay in touch. But if he does need something, or if his wife needs something, or if anybody else that's in that elder group, that's something that we want to make ourselves available to. It's much more than just a product or a Word of Life club. It's about impacting the people that are trying to do the work of the Lord. That's really important to us, and we're really excited about that. Here's some quick data.
Oh, I got two.
Diane and I were debating. This is what's so funny. When we finally get to what we're going to be doing, some of this doesn't even fit with what we're doing because what we're doing is so new. We're like guinea pigs with Word of Life, and that's really exciting or terrifying. So anyway, so as you can see in there,
It was weird.
did you guys see that?
Did you change something back there?
That was cool.
Well, I put the thing down here and it goes.
So basically what this slide is telling us that people under the age under 18, that demographic that we're reaching, if you put it all together, would represent the 17th largest country in the world. You can go to the next slide. And if that were the case, then the youth of America would be bigger than these countries. Just the youth of America and 225 other countries. This is where you take over for this part.
So, we want to partner with churches. Oh, did I move? I did, okay. So, Word of Life is funded by the gifts of interested friends and churches. We're required to raise 100% of our,
Get that one.
oh, I'm sorry, raise 100% of our support.
And you all know that, right?
You know that.
That's
you know
not a
that deal.
newsflash.
So,
One of the things that we want to plant in your brains is it's like you're reaching the generation of the youth, like all those people that we just talked about, is through our ministry. Our ministry is so unique and so new, we don't even have a name for it. What the people at Word of Life have told us to use is we're pioneering Word of Life's expansion. Word of Life, and I don't know if you knew this, had a policy that a church could not start a Word of Life club, either a children's ministry or a student ministry, unless there was an area missionary within 2 hours' drive. That was the policy. Because they were very hands-on, they want to really do it right, and that was the model, and that worked really well. When we started our club in Alabama, we were outside that circle. We were 2.5 hours away from our missionary, and they cut us a break and let him come down, and it worked out just fine. We became a great club. Well, because of that, if you can go to the next slide, you can't see it here, but you'll see it when it pops up. Okay. This slide represents where Word of Life currently is. And as you can see, it is all up and down the East Coast. All up and down the East Coast. And there's a few that are out there towards the west. Like I said, there's one in Denver. There's, I think we counted 6 in Texas. We don't have that slide in here.
okay.
And so when they realized if they followed their model, do you know how many missionaries they would have to raise?
Lots.
Thousands. They would have to raise up thousands of missionaries to go and reach the rest of the United States. And Diane had talked about this yesterday, and it's true. Countries are sending missionaries to us because our generation has tanked. We've like you see that demographic where the nuns have no religious affiliation is staggeringly high. And when we study the generations, whether it's the baby boomers to Gen X to millennials to Gen Z, and Y. No, do I have that right?
No, YZ.
YZ. So yeah, millennials are Y, and then Gen Z. We've experienced the different levels of lack of biblical knowledge, lack of even understanding of God. You can't even start a conversation with Jesus. You have to back up. Let's talk about who made all this thing happen, and talk a little bit about God. So Word of Life has decided we're going to pioneer basically what used to be in the old days circuit riding preaching, except our horse isn't a horse. It's that super sweet RV out there. And the initial target area that we're going to be branching out to is going south into lower Alabama, because there's no clubs in lower Alabama. We're going to go to Mobile, over to Louisiana. Don't do that.
I didn't do it.
Okay, you did too.
Oh, he filled in for me.
No, he didn't do that. That was totally her. It's Mary Lou's fault.
It's Gilly's fault.
Yeah, you take it. Anyway, no, really, it was his. Into Louisiana, up into Mississippi, and the western side of Tennessee, and then back. And what we're going to do is, the old-fashioned way is go into these communities, do a recon, meet and talk to youth leaders, youth pastors, build relationships, and then move on to the next point. They did a trial epic, what do you call it? Trial run in Mississippi. They went there for like a weekend or 4 days and just got youth leaders together and started talking to them, and then showed them what Word of Life is, what Word of Life has, and what Word of Life can offer as a parachurch organization. We're not there to take over the church, we're here to help. And after they saw all the materials, they're like, where have you all been? Because what Word of Life has to offer is really cool stuff. So that's what we're going to do. Word of Life's goal is to be in 10 states in 5 years, where they are currently not. As the old Star Trek expression, to go where no man has gone before. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go where Word of Life has never been before. And then that's our first route. We're going to do that several times. So that means we're going to be on the road 6 to 8 weeks at a time. Come back to Alabama, base of operations, recharge up, refuel up, and do it again. Building those relationships. Once we have those established, our ultimate goal is to find those missionaries. And we're, the scripture that says, pray the Lord of the harvest. It's his harvest. We're asking the Lord to provide workers for that harvest. We're interested in reaching those students who, quite frankly, need Jesus more now than ever. More now than ever. We are so new with Word of Life, we don't have a prayer card. We don't have anything to offer you except our good looks. And Diana does have, Word of Life did send us some promo materials so that we could put that on our display table. And
You guys could flip that. There you go. Thank you.
matter of fact, it wasn't until Friday that they sent me this and said, oh, by the way, we've kind of tentatively figured out what your support is. That slide is just our support. It's not the ministry side of the support. That's just our salary and health care and all that other stuff. And you see some travel that's in there. And currently we're at zero. We're at ground zero. We have like no support. So we're excited about what God is going to do in the church. The thing that'll be interesting is how we develop our ministry expenses, because being on the road and going and doing what we're going to do, because we don't have children at home, we can do what they want us to do. You don't find everybody that can just pop up, leave everything, and be on the road for 6 to 8 weeks and take what needs to be taken to where it needs to go. Mm-hmm. The thing that I think, is there anything you want to say about this?
No.
No, okay. The thing that, no, that's later. All right, let's go to the next slide.
You guys can just change it back there.
Yep, that's the last one, I think.
Yep, just go to the next one. There you go. One, and hit it one more.
Hit it. There it
you
goes.
go. There you go.
All right, you do that part.
So, would you prayerfully consider praying for us and becoming part of this new expansion taking God's word to teenagers and to young people where it is yet to go through. You know already what Word of Life can do. You know what it does. You've seen what it does. Let's get it now into the hands of these people that don't have it and haven't had it yet, and to just see what God is going to do. So
We
down-
do have this. Oh,
Yeah, down on our table, you'll see some fun Alabama stuff, and the baseball helmet. So we have the Montgomery Biscuits. That's our baseball team, and so I only got that baseball helmet because my son works for them. So
and it's a legit helmet.
and it's a legit player helmet down there, so you can beat your head. You can put it on, Gilly, and smack yourself. You can smack a Mary, and
You could put it on and do demo.
there you go.
Yes.
So anyway, but on that table we have these little brown cards. And it says, don't wait. And it has 1 Chronicles 16:24, which says, declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous deeds among all peoples. And that's what we all are doing. And then it says, there are so many reasons. That's why there's a Reese's
Ba-dum-bink.
peanut butter cup on there. And that's
She
why
gets
there's-
it. She's like, yes, that's hilarious. Not really.
That's why there's Reese's peanut butter cups on our table for you to take. But that's okay. I got more in the container. Just come
So
see me
just
later.
knock yourself out.
And so anyway, but it's got our information on there, and it's got Keith's cell phone and our email address. And we do have an email prayer sign up. If you want to receive our prayer notifications and prayer requests, you can sign up for that. We don't, send you or sell your email to anybody and, make billions of dollars off, everybody under the sun sending you advertisements.
And if you don't do email, if you want to receive it the traditional mail, just put it on their snail mail or mail it to me.
There's a
and-
spot there for your just regular
Yeah,
address.
we'll be happy to send it to you.
Yeah.
And, the final challenge, and this is probably the most spiritual thing that we're going to talk about tonight, is what we're going to ask you to do is, yes, we're asking you to support us, but not in a traditional sense. We believe, and it's when we did our first support raising venture, I'm going to be honest, it was not fun. It was post-2008, after the bubble cracked. All the economic pressures of 2012, 11, 12 in that neighborhood, 13, it was rough to even get in the church. And if I got in the church and was able to score a presentation, most of the churches came back no, and they used two primary reasons. Number one, they couldn't. They just couldn't afford to do it. They were, it was tight. I get it. I understand. But because we weren't planting a church, they were disinterested. That was option number one. Well, you're not planting a church, so no, we're not going to support you. Or the other one was, yeah, we put all our eggs in Nicaragua, so you're not going to Nicaragua, so we're not going to support you. And I'll be honest, I felt like I was the guy that stands on the corner with the cardboard thing that says, please help me. Yeah, I really had a bad attitude about asking, and that's all I knew how to do was just ask and beg, and it's really demoralizing. It's not a whole lot of fun. The cool thing is, because of what Word of Life is partnered with, and a book that's called The God Ask, revolutionized, at least for me, the approach. See, I'm not going to be asking you to support me or us. I'm going to be asking you and asking your church to ask God. Because it's a vertical relationship. I mean, this isn't about us. This is about this. We have prayed. God knows what we need before we even know what we need. We're still trying to figure out what we need. We had an exploding RV toilet the other day before we even got on the road. That was insane. But that's a different story. You ask me about it later. It's a lot of fun. Anyways, we're praying to Him. He knows what we need, and we're dreaming big for God. The task the vision that we have is huge, and it's going to be really expensive. I'm not going to lie, but I don't care, because it's His project, it's His ministry, and if He wants it to happen, He's going to fund it. So I don't have to worry about it. Not my problem. It's His. So I'm asking Him, God, you know what you want us to do. You called us to do it. You fund it. We'll do it. If you don't, then it wasn't your will. We're asking you. You ask God. And you say, Lord, would you have us to partner with the Edwards? Would you have us to take the resources that you've given to us and invest in the Edwards? And if He says yes, then your next question is how much? And then you let the Lord lead you. And if He says no, then he wants you to use the resources someplace else or somewhere else. So there's no pressure. I have no pressure. You have no pressure. The church has no pressure. All we have to do is ask God. The big thing is just to be obedient to what God says. And that's the really difficult or challenging thing, is just to be open to listen to what God has to say to you. Because most Americans have this concept that this is my stuff. That's my RV out there. The other day when toilet was overflowing, I was like, Lord, why are you flooding your toilet? Why are you flooding your RV? I don't get it. This doesn't make sense. This is your RV. What are you doing out here? It's his. Everything that we own is his. My life is his. And so if you get nothing out of anything that we have to say today, consider that. Please ask God what he would have you to do with the resources that he has entrusted to your care. Because, guess what? We have to give an account. We do. We do. There's that judgment seat. You know, it's not about salvation, it's about what did you do with Christ. Pastor's nodding his head. You can follow up and make that a sermon series. Brother, I could preach it for 1 Corinthians chapter 3, 15. Let's go. I got something for you. He said I could go to 9:45.
I said I'd be in the RV, so you can just follow me.
Yes. And so this is where we're going to end it. Oh, yes, this is the big one. Okay, brace yourselves. This is like next level crazy stuff. What we want to do is we're going to ask the Lord to fund us, fully fund us, once we pick a start date in 100 days. 100 days, we're going to raise over $7,000 a month. That's our prayer. And that's insane because it took us almost 2.5 years to get to 60% when we went to Germany. And that was a bigger budget than this. So pray about that. I want to see God glorified. I want to see people say, what in the world is God doing? Yeah, it's his bank account. He can do whatever he wants with it. So that's our prayer request. We'll let you know what our start date is. We don't even know because they just unlocked that little button that says, oh, here's all your resources. And then there's this training section, and there's like hundreds of videos that we're supposed to watch to get trained up. And then we're on our way to Florida to go to the support training boot camp. It's a 2-week conference. Someone's got to suffer in Orlando, so we'll take it for the team. Yeah, we'll be thinking of you guys.
After this week, I'm ready for Orlando.
So we have a few minutes. We'd like to open up the floor for any questions and answers. If you don't have any questions or anything cool like that, we'll just stand here and look funny for a couple minutes and then turn it back over to Pastor. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I actually have a praise. Oh, hi, little guy.
Look at that technology.
I just wanted to say
Carson,
how
good job,
interesting
buddy.
it is to have learned tonight that out in the West, there isn't a whole lot of youth leadership and places where these youth can go. But I also want to say that because of people like you and other people, and even some youth that have been trained by people like you who go into churches, or people like we have here that work with the children, it was interesting that times are changing. I'm a 60s girl. This is way out there. I mean, I'm the Jetsons over again. What? I can't, you know. I'm waiting for Rosie to come up and tell me how to read the Bible. I'm still way back there. But in all due respect, I found 2 youngsters today that I saw. I'm not watching much TV these days. There's really not much good going on there. But there were 2 young men that someone was talking to that had been with leaders such as yourself or some of the people I've met in here. And they have opened this platform for youth, teenage youth, where they can now go and they can learn about Jesus, and they can dance and sing and travel with each other, make the communication, give it an auspice umbrella. And I just remember thinking how, like E.T., my little heart lit up. Wow, there's hope for these kids, you know? And I hear about what Lauren and her family do with the kids here. And I see the education in the little ones. So I think any encouragement is good. God bless you for what you're trying to do and what God will allow you to do, but there's also praise in that.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you get a dime, it's working. Some of these youth are going to be the future of the rest of the youth.
Yep.
And without people such as yourself, that does not happen. So your new plan is great. I'll talk to my daughter out in Las Vegas, out in the West, and I'll say, I want some research done out there. What's going on out there, Danielle? Let me know.
Let us know.
Because there's a lot of youth out there,
Yep, sure is.
and they're building like crazy. So I will pray for you. Good luck.
Praise the
Thank
Lord.
you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Anybody else? Any questions? Keith will answer whatever you want to know. You want to know where dinosaurs came from? He's the man. No, I'm kidding.
God said, boom.
I just want to ask you, with the Word of Life, we have a club, and over half of these kids in the club, they don't have what you call family life. We have, the boy doesn't come anymore, the two sisters come, and all three of these kids have different last names.
Yep, we know about that.
And the family unit isn't there, so how do you, what's the plan to try to get some parents, quote unquote, involved in these kids' lives? Biggest problem we have is we send the stuff home to do, and we have to do it with them there in club because the parents just aren't helping them.
Yeah.
And that's one of the challenges that, we faced even where we were. We have to raise up an army of people that like you, want to invest in students and children. And where mom and dad don't exist, you kind of temporarily become surrogate parents. And you do your very best with the time that God has given to you to pour into those child, trusting that in the end, that's God's child. And if their parents are messed up or not there, hopefully God will use the child to reach their parents. All we can do is continue to do what you're doing as best as you can.
I think one of the other things that, we're going to be doing is we're going to be coming alongside of those youth leaders, like you, okay? Coming alongside you and encouraging you and giving you tools to then reach those families, where you can reach deeper into the family. Send a note home and say, hey, Johnny's got, this verse to learn. Maybe you could help him learn it. And, praising Johnny each week, if he's there, that's a win. He's here in the gospel, that's a win. And so, us as we train leaders and we get in to mentor leaders and know leaders, then they can turn around and then, like you, be able to pour more into the kids and into the families because they understand the dynamic of what those kids are going through.
Well, right here, we have the surrogate grandparents.
There you go, that's it. Hey, I think, you can see that my hair is getting gray. I finally stopped coloring it about 8 months ago. I was like, oh, forget that. And you know what? It's okay. And that's exactly what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to be pouring into the next generation. You're supposed to be passing that torch. Because they're going to look back someday when you're in heaven, and they're going to say, I remember so-and-so. And I would go to this Bible club. They're going to be telling their kids about it. And that's where we get, you might not see it in this lifetime, but in heaven, we will see the fruits of our labors and as we can lay those crowns before the feet of Christ for what we've done for him. So bravo, kudos, stay at it, don't be discouraged, please.
Dad, today I had a discussion with one of the girls, and she's actually pretty intelligent. She Carson.
It's for the online people, if there happen to be any. They watched us like, oop, turn it off.
And I tried to get her by herself, and we have sent material home with her so that we can drive them to church and take that responsibility away from us. And I said, why aren't you down here with her workbook? And she said, my mom won't help me. And we approached, we sent all the stuff home, and they just don't get anything. Just one girl. The other ones are okay.
We had tons of students, high school and junior high students, that didn't have moms and dads. We had one young man in our youth group, and he was kind of our surrogate son. He lived down the street, but he spent more time at our house than he did at his house. And Mikey was so excited when we did a new church directory because he was the only kid that his whole family had 3 different last names of his siblings. And, so we poured into Mikey as much as we could pour into Mikey. We couldn't be in the home. We couldn't force a parent. but you're laying the seeds, you are putting those seeds there, and God will water them. He will reward that work.
If you could do me a favor and go ahead and kill the live stream, I have something I want to share, but it can't be public on the live stream. Mikey